It's Project Cargo Professionals. We are in Singapore for Transport Logistic, and I have the pleasure of being joined by Indroneel Sen from DHL. Nice to see you, sir.
Pleasure, Luke. Thank you for having me over. Thank you. Really appreciate that.
Thank you for stopping by. So we recently had Jake, your colleague from the US, on the podcast, and he told us a lot about how AI, data centers, big tech was fueling their business over there, creating lots of work for the Project Cargo sector. Tell us what's keeping you busy in this part of the world.
Well, APAC certainly is now one of the busiest zones as far as project cargo is concerned. And obviously, the whole world is now focusing on AI-driven kind of technology, the data centers, the semiconductor business. I was talking to one of my colleagues, and they were telling me that semiconductor is now being valued at more than $55 billion market size. And we are now looking at fab constructions, we're looking at data centers, we're looking at moving ahead for the technology world, which wasn't there a couple of years back. Obviously, it's not all the shiny stuff. We still have the old, as we call it, the sexy and the ugly, the EPCs, the oil and gas upstream. We've got our renewables industry. So definitely APAC is busy. APAC is thriving. And it's a good time to be in the APAC zone in terms of the projects world.
Good to know. And I saw an interview with your new CEO, Martin Lawns, and he was talking about China, where he said that he saw great opportunity, but also challenges in delivering for your customers in China. So why don't you tell us a bit about both the opportunities and the challenges in China?
So China obviously is the backbone of the world, right? In terms of manufacturing, in terms of industrialization. And the same thing is there in our industrial project cargo. Obviously, if I take in the challenges, I would say couple of them would be like the biggest challenge that I see today personally is the infrastructure in terms of having availability of tonnage. It is so chock-a-block in terms of actual cargo production. It's so chock-a-block. The ports are so chock-a-block. The
ports in China.
The ports in China.
Yep.
The order books are so chock-a-block that sometimes to get tonnage of the vessel carriers is almost next to impossible. That's one of the biggest challenges. We do see challenges in terms of the macroeconomics. We are all living in a world where decisions get reversed, changed, made quite frantic speed. That does deter sometimes some investors or some manufacturers from deciding the course on par, in terms of the future outlook. That is definitely a challenge. We do see challenge also in terms of attaining the right capability and the right experience among the people that's needed for this business. That is another challenge that we see. But everything is not gloom and doom, right? China remains the backbone of the business. Manufacturing is skyrocketing. There is a lot of focus on being the nerve center of the projects. In fact, even when we see within our own project industry, be it anywhere, the origin could be in Europe, the destination could be in the Middle East, but sourcing remains in APAC, sourcing remains in China. So I think we are in a good way where we got to coexist with the challenges and the opportunities, and that's where an adapt, agile freight forwarder is going to be thriving in, sure.
Yeah. And talk a bit about the impact of the China Plus One strategy.
China Plus One can be seen in two different ways, right? Obviously, as I said a little bit earlier, China is the backbone of the business, right? However, China Plus One can also be seen on a different perspective that the individual countries, they are also trying to ramp up their own economies. And ramping up the economies means setting up manufacturing bases, setting up heavy lift industry, setting up things where there can be a larger scale employment, right? We see countries like Indonesia, we see countries like Vietnam, India. They're making such gigantic strides in trying to ramp up their own infrastructure, trying to ramp up their own inherent ability to attract business. So I think it is moving in that direction. So if you want to see as China Plus One, we see it in that particular way. Today, we see a plethora of different origin points in the Asian world with regards to project cargo, which may not have been there a couple of years back. Semiconductor bases, heavy manufacturing, oil and gas, FPSOs, shipbuilding. So I think these are the kind of things that every country is investing in, trying to improve their infrastructure, trying to improve their ability to attract foreign investments. And for us, more the merrier. That's what a network group like us does.
And you've touched on a couple already, but tell us what are the main bottlenecks or issues that you have in terms of executing projects in APAC?
APAC being the diverse place it is, right? There isn't one or two bottlenecks that I can say uniformly across, but obviously, and on a broader macro level, I would say infrastructure. Some of the places they're not suitable to handle heavy lift cargoes. They're not able to handle over-dimensional, over-height, overweight cargoes. Complexities in custom clearances. It still is there in our part of the world. Our ability to attract the right talent, sometimes tariffs. So I think it's a plethora of problems that are there in our Asian world, but everybody's looking into it positively and everybody's trying to make one stride at a time.
And DHL has committed to achieving net zero by 2050. How does that chime with the desires and the needs of your customers in this region?
So obviously we do know logistics is a fuel guzzling, carbon emission industry, right? But however, and I'm proud to say that being a part of DHL, that with the commitment that our group has given in terms of reducing our footprints, right, and going to carbon net zero, we are looking into ways whereby we are able to attract the right kind of vendors, the right kind of solutions to this particular problem. Obviously, we do see also a very paradigm shift from the earlier years. These days, in a lot of our tenders, the clients themselves are asking, what can we bring in terms of changing the way we're going to work, how we're going to work? And definitely, I think that's one place that we are really focusing on. Our commitment as a group, our commitment as a project organization remains. And yeah, I'm hopeful that we're going to be there very soon.
You're saying that there's interest from your clients in terms of how they can improve the transport.
Definitely, there is a lot of interest from the customers now. And these customers in the earlier years, they used to be, let's say, the global companies who would have a global footprint, but now we can even see localized and small, medium-sized expertise kind of companies wanting to understand. They're wanting us to come up with solutions. Some of the tenders even have a large framework for percentage of the output basis of our green solutions. And they really are partnering in this. And I see a positive change, which wasn't there when I began my career a good couple of years back. But I see a lot of positive change in terms of that, where interaction, engagement, other than just commercial and operational, there's a lot of interest and time devoted to understanding and discussing go-green solutions.
Yeah. And this is a big region, as you touched on. How is APAC different, and what advice would you give to a new starter that was perhaps joining you from another part of the world? What's your advice for succeeding in projects in this region?
I think that's a great question. And number one would be believe in the diversity of this region. I mean, every 100 kilometers, we have a new country, we have a new culture, we have a new language. So adapt yourself to this diversity, build up trust. In APAC, trust moves faster than a truck. Believe in and practice in what we preach, and also learn to be adaptable. No 2 single days are same in APAC. Things change faster, things change for the better, and just be open-minded. And that's what I would tell anybody who's coming in from across the world to come and work in Asia Pacific.
And I know you've worked in various different parts of the world. Tell us a little bit about your experience before this, and also what lessons that you've carried with you from other parts of the globe.
I think I've been extremely lucky to have been a part of the project world, or let's say the logistics world. It's taken me across almost every continent, be it Russia or Central Asia, Middle East, Africa, Asia, North America. And I think one big takeaway that I brought in is the ability to think out of the box, the ability to innovate and not stagnate in a particular zone or in a particular environment, right? Exposure to different colleagues across the world, different cultures, different ways of interpretation of thinking. I think that's something that I bring onto the table. And something that I just said a bit earlier, being adaptable. So now I think no climate, no environment, or no difficult situation deters me, right? It's been the exposure, and I'm extremely grateful, and that's what I bring to the office on a regular basis.
And finally, just give us your outlook for the next couple of years. Perhaps tell us one thing that you're particularly excited about and one risk that you might be concerned about.
I think on a risk side, I would divide it obviously with the macroeconomics, because obviously project industry is something that looks into the future. We plan for projects that might be 2, 3, 4, 5 years ahead of us, but we plan for it today. We built in our infrastructure, we built in our competencies basis of today. And maybe that could be a risk factor, because with things changing, a lot of times investments get delayed, inputs from the clients get delayed, things go into a limbo. So that definitely could be is one of the major reasons. Attraction of young talent, as it happens in any industry, there's going to be a generation passing, and sometimes there is a difficulty in attracting the right talent, especially in the heavy lift and engineering world. I think those are the challenges. But on the positive side, There's a lot of business opportunities that are already there in the books, which has been booked a couple of years back, and that's now under execution. In fact, one of my customers was saying that they're so overbooked that they are not accepting orders for the next 3 years. And that's music to our ears, right? And obviously, APAC evolves. We learn new paradigms of business. We learn new ways of doing business as a group. I think it's going to be a mix, and it's going to be a very interesting period in the next couple of years.
Indroneel, it was great to get a little flavor of APAC. Thank you very much for stopping by.
Absolutely, and thank you for having me over. My pleasure.